Hello, Patreon family. This is your girl, Megan. Welcome back. Today, I want to do a brief celebrity natal chart reading with you guys, this time on the Miami based rapper Wavy Pooh. Okay, so according to reports on January 14th, he was tragically gunned down, okay, savagely executed, murdered, if you will, while he was in the car with, I'm assuming, his two children, and I don't know if she was a girlfriend, the baby's mother. But either way, it was crazy. So he was the only one who was killed. And of course, a lot of people are reeling from this tragic occurrence. He did have fans. I mean, like I said, I'm not really familiar with him. I don't know any of his music, but he did have fans, and he was actually signed to Quality Control, over there with Migos, City Girls, Lil Baby. So I think it was Coach P or one of the coaches, okay? One of the coaches, maybe the one with the big bell pepper nose. He basically was just saying, like, we don't need to glorify gun violence in the wake of his death. And I thought that was really interesting, considering, like, sir, you only signed gangster rappers. Like, okay, I mean, I don't know why it took this long to come to that conclusion, but gangster rap isn't going anywhere. The glorification and glamorization of that gangster lifestyle not really going nowhere, because it's what makes a lot of people at the top of the pyramid in the industry all of their money. You know what I mean? But that's a different video for a different day. But I was just curious, about his natal chart, and I wanted to put what happened to him into more of an astrological context, just for educational purposes. But I do want to preface this reading by saying, once again, rest in peace to his soul. I hope he journeys well. And, shout out to his family, friends, loved ones, fans, and all that good stuff. So I hope, everybody is able to heal at some point. So let's go ahead and get started. I also want you to excuse the little ruffles and scuffles that you may hear throughout the reading. I've just been struggling with my audio lately, y'all. I've been struggling with on the audio front, but we're going to get it together. We're going to get it together soon enough, because I do want to produce top tier quality content for y'all. But just hold it down for me today and just ignore it. All right. So, yeah, with that being said, Mr. Wavy Pooh was born on December 14th, 1994 in Miami, Florida. Of course, like most artists, their time of birth isn't available, but we can safely deduce that he is, in fact, a Sagittarius sun and Mercury. He has his sun at the 22nd degree, actually, of Sag conjoined to his Mercury, which is also at the 22nd degree. So that is what we call, ladies and gentlemen, an exact or a direct conjunction in astrology. And it could point towards a person who, a lot of times, I mean, these are people who are very focused, almost like they have this kind of tunnel vision kind of mentality or perception, especially when it comes to like their purpose, what it is they want to do. And even with him being a Sagittarius, this could be like what he believes in or how he thinks about things. Once he gets like an idea in his mind, he has to carry it out. He has to act on it, that kind of thing, right? That could also make for a very intelligent person as well. Now, I'm also wondering if he's Haitian. I know a lot of people who are from like Miami, in the Miami area, do have some type of ties to either Haiti or the Caribbean. And this would also be very conducive with him being a Sagittarius sun and Mercury, because this could produce a person who may have grown up in a multicultural environment. I've seen this in the charts of people who could have like relatives who were immigrants, or perhaps he lived in a community around a bunch of other people of different nationalities and so on and so forth, which once again makes a lot of sense, because Miami is very much, it's giving cultural melting pot. You also see a lot of this type of energy in the charts of people who could be from up north, so like New York and whatnot as well. But I thought this was interesting. But something else that stood out to me was the fact that Mercury is so dominant. Even with him being born on the 14th, technically the number 14 reduces to 5, and the number 5 is ruled by Mercury. And then, of course, that conjunction between Mercury and his sun. Mercury actually rules cars, so keep that in mind, because I just found that to be really interesting, given the fact that he actually died in the car, right? But nonetheless, as someone with their sun in conjunction of Mercury, these are people who could spend a lot of time, like in the car, going on road trips, traveling a lot. So in that kind of vein, I can kind of see it check out there as well. And with his sun and Mercury at the 22nd degree, even in tandem with, that 14 energy, this could actually produce or even often result in strange occurrences that could happen either to one's vehicle or to a person while they're operating a vehicle. So for example, like, these are people who are likely to experience just either car accidents or weird abnormalities to their cars and things like that, especially with his Mercury squaring his Chiron in Virgo. He may have been a person whose car oftentimes needed a lot of maintenance. Maybe a person who had a car that broke down a lot, but that's kind of beside the point. But even as it pertains to this particular shooting or drive-by shooting, that could kind of still be woven into that in terms of just shocking events, shocking occurrences and sudden events that could transpire while one is behind the wheel or navigating a car. Not to mention that square between his Mercury and Chiron could also make for a distracted driver. Now, obviously, I'm not implying that a person who was maybe more attentive would have been able to avoid said scenario. I don't know what it's like, thank God, to be shot at in a car. Don't want to know what it's like, okay? And nobody really knows exactly how it played out but the people in the car. So, but I just thought that was also something noteworthy to mention. Now, his death was a very karmic one in the sense that, he has a lot of indicators in his chart of meeting an untimely demise. And I say that because he's actually a Scorpio North Node. Now, if you are someone who has Scorpio on the North Node, don't necessarily freak out, because it doesn't have to be applicable to all Scorpio North Nodes, but I would be a lie if I didn't say that, because Scorpio is the sign of death. So a lot of times Scorpio North Nodes are put in positions where they're going to get up close and personal with death. That's just is unavoidable. And a lot of times this can manifest through like witnessing the death of other people. And this is further amplified for Wavy Pooh because he does have his Venus conjoined to the Scorpio North Node, which is also at the 12th degree, which is a very unfortunate number in and of itself, right? The number 12 deals with victimization. It deals with sacrifice. And then having that conjunction to Venus, that could be a person who's lost a lot of friends. And when you also incorporate the fact that Scorpio does deal with criminal activity, and the fact that, I've never listened to his music, but even just like looking him up and reading certain, song titles and whatever the case may be, like he appears to be like a gangster rapper. I'm pretty sure he was a gangster rapper. I'm pretty sure he was a nigga in the streets. These are people who can definitely very much be immersed in like that type of lifestyle, like where they're killing people, where they're seeing killings, where they're experiencing the death of loved ones or friends, you know what I mean? Making money in illegal ways, especially with his Venus in opposition, not only to that Taurus South Node, but he was a Taurus moon as well. He has his moon conjoined to that South Node. So, that could be a person who, at the core of it, loves money, material things. I'm pretty sure he was somebody who supported or took care of his family. That's very conducive to the moon in conjunction to Taurus, that Taurus South Node rather. So because of that, when we look at the opposition to his North Node and Venus, okay, yeah, he's willing to do some dirty shit. He's willing to get his hands dirty in order to come up with the money and support his family. Now, Another way you could look at this too is with that Taurus South Node and Moon as his love for music. I'm pretty sure he was a very creative, very musically talented individual. But the opposition that his Moon is making to his North Node and even that Venus, right? I'm wondering if he had one leg in the game and one leg out. So this could be a person who is still recording music, still making music, but still doing a little whoop, whoop, whoop on the side. You know what I'm saying? Committing a little dirt on the side, or still either engaging in illegal activity, who has their hands in some just other underhanded, shady stuff. You know, those kind of vibes, which, I mean, kind of makes sense. Especially if you actively have people who are gunning for you, even despite you being a rapper. So, you know, there's that. And it's a known fact that most rappers don't get paid a bunch of money. Like, he wasn't a star on the roster. He's not no little baby. He wasn't Migos. So, I mean, I don't know what his deal looked like. I'm pretty sure he was given like a hefty amount of change in terms of being signed. But at the end of the day, we all know how the record label works. We know how like the industry works. A lot of times these artists are broke or just don't have the type of money people would think they have. And it's not uncommon for a lot of rappers to still have to engage in street business, right? So, you know, that this opposition is very indicative of that. He also has his Jupiter at the first degree of Sag conjoined to Pluto. That could even materialize in near-death experiences. So I wouldn't be surprised, if he's had many encounters like this. This, unfortunately, just so happened to be the encounter that took him up out of here. He could have even had run-ins with the law as well, because he has that Jupiter squaring his Saturn and Pisces, even Jupiter squaring his Virgo Mars. These are two aspects that could land one in jail or even threaten a person's freedom. So can Jupiter in conjunction to Pluto, though, technically. Some other things I want to point out in terms of Wavy Pooh's Scorpio North Node and that Venus conjunction. You know, this is a configuration that could also produce a person who is very much prominent. Like, they could be very prominent, especially when it comes to their respective career field. So you can even look at that, like him gaining a lot of notoriety, being very influential, but it could also breed a lot of hate and hatred from other people. And I also discovered that he was involved in gang activity, which also makes sense, especially with that Venus opposition to his South Node and that Taurus Moon. So you could look at him, or look at this as him receiving a lot of hatred just from, his past gang activity and affiliation, but also just someone who naturally could like rub a lot of people the wrong way. These are people who could be, just very notorious for like infamous behavior, or they can have a certain level of infamy about them. They can be really, really hated. Like, you could have a lot of people who really love them, but a lot of people who really, really, really hate them. They can have a lot of enemies, especially with Venus in the mix. So, that's something else to think about. And I think he even had a song, from what I remember reading, that was talking about there being some money on his head or something, which is also very conducive to that Venus and Scorpio in opposition to his Taurus Moon, where, once again, with that Moon and Taurus dealing with gangs, it could also deal with, because a lot of gangs do make money, especially, like, of course, illegally and things like that. So, maybe it was some things went wrong and some people put some money on his head, and, the people came to collect. That's very, very, very Scorpio conjoined to Venus on the North Node, and in opposition to that Moon and Taurus South Node. So that also made a lot of sense. Now, on the more positive side, this Venus Scorpio North Node conjunction definitely helped him out as it pertained to collaborations. He worked with a lot of, once again, very prominent and influential artists in the industry. I looked up, like I said, just a list of some of the music that he made. Lots of features from different people. Now, in observing Wavy Pooh's transits on the day that he was killed. So this was January 14th. They didn't release, or at least I didn't see an exact time or even an approximation of when this shooting occurred, but it kept saying evening. All of the articles that I referenced said evening. So I just chose an arbitrary time in the evening. But even with that being said, he has some really interesting things going on transit wise that definitely explained his death. Now, he was fresh off of a Pluto Uranus transit that peaked back in November, but because Pluto and Uranus are so heavy, obviously as planets, you could kind of still feel like the aftershocks or, the after wave effects of this transit. And this could absolutely produce a sudden death, an unexpected demise, so to speak. Transiting Neptune had been squaring his sun in Mercury a few weeks prior to the shooting as well, which I'm sure could have led to him letting his guard down or just not paying attention. Sometimes Neptune transits could cause a person to act really careless, and especially with him being a Sagittarius anyway, that's a dark side of Sagittarius trait. Overly reliant on our luck to the point where we just kind of are reckless with some of the decisions that we make, right? Leading to a person maybe not taking the kind of precaution that they should. That Neptune square to his Mercury and Sun could even deal with him drinking a lot during this time period, smoking a lot. Now, on the evening of this incident, transiting Mars was forming a direct conjunction to Wavy Pooh's Mercury, which in and of itself can produce a situation where one is attacked while in their vehicle, shot at, whatever the case may be. So, that was one of the major smoking guns, transit-wise, that popped that whole shooting off. It could also deal with him maybe having gotten into like an argument with someone. Transiting Mercury was at the 10th degree of Aquarius, and it was squaring his Venus, as well as that North Node of his. So once again, initiating being killed or being executed while in your car. And if you ask me, especially with Aquarius, in the mix, his Mercury, or transiting Mercury rather, at the 10th degree of Aquarius, you would have to look at some of his friends. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of like an inside job, or if there were some, friends or associates of his that were culpable in the incident. The transit of the moon at the time possibly could have been in Gemini, which also sets the theme or the tone for, riding in a car, being in a vehicle. Also, transiting Saturn is squaring his nodes, okay? Transiting Saturn is in Aquarius. So when squaring the nodes, especially once again, that Scorpio North Node could absolutely produce situations where, like, really karmic based situations where things could change for you in the blink of an eye, right? Life death situations, do or die situations in the blink of an eye, where you could even manifest or bring back a lot of your karma and things like that, like karmic checkpoints. So a lot of the things that you've done, especially if you are a criminal, especially if you are living that type of lifestyle, but it can really be applicable to anything where those things kind of hiccup and come back on you. Then you have the transiting North Node, which is currently in Taurus, opposing his Pluto, which is another death aspect, or it can be a potential death aspect transit-wise. And he was approaching his inverse nodal return. In astrology, your inverse nodal return is basically when transiting North Node is in the same sign as your natal South Node, and then the transiting South Node just so happens to be in the same exact sign as your transiting North Node. So it's inverted, right? Like the name suggests. And pretty much it produces like karmic checkpoints that can trigger the themes associated with your nodes. So in this instance, or for example, with Wavy Pooh, As a Scorpio North Node, like I said, a lot of those karmic themes involving criminal activity, sex, death, having the transiting South Node conjoined to his North Node, or at least in the same sign. And then that Pluto conjunction, his Pluto conjoined to the transiting South Node really kind of like kicked that off. But had he lived a little longer, he probably would have experienced the actual inversion, which would have created more situations. So it's just, he had a lot of things energetically, a lot of things astrologically and cosmic wise that were against him. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. And yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section about this whole situation. How do you feel about his chart? And y'all be careful, y'all. Y'all be careful. Y'all be real easy out here, because, especially if you're somebody who is engaged in certain types of lifestyles and whatnot, you may want to tread real careful, because it's going to be really easy to get caught up, especially with transiting South Node and Scorpio. You always look at that South Node energy, even on a collective level, as a trap. So yeah, it's going to be really easy to kind of lean into that energy. It can kind of feel like a lot of people are doing it. You can see like a uptick in some of these areas, especially when, once again, it applies to crime and murder and, maybe even being tempted to doing things that are not legitimate. Even giving into your lower natures, a lot of deviancy is going to be present, or people being put on blast for sexual deviancy, aka Trey Songz, who is actually a natal Scorpio South Node. But I digress. Point is, whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're into, this is a time period where people have to be really careful, because it's going to be real easy to get caught up, and getting caught up could lead to a number of things, especially based on what you have going on in your natal chart. So yeah, make sure you share. Feel free to share in the comment section. Practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.